Hello board game brothers and sisters, I'm Adam Singer and welcome to another episode where I'll be letting you know of Kickstarters launching this week. If you're new to the channel, we do this every week going over all the upcoming campaigns on GameFound and Kickstarter, so if you want to stay up to date, feel free to subscribe down below, and I truly appreciate it. Before we get started, I do like to go over a few new discoveries and announcements that I just found out about in the past week, and the first one is for Horseless Carriage, and this is going to be the next game being released by Splatter Games, and you might know them for the most famous release, which is Food Chain Magnate, and this is going to be for release of summer of 2022. There's not a whole lot of info out on this one yet, but it takes place during the dawn of automobiles, and I expect that players are going to be building different cars and trying to decide what the public values and what they don't, so they can sell their cars in a changing market. As with Splatter fashion, it does hold a hefty price tag, so I wouldn't recommend jumping into this yet until there's more info or previews or playthroughs provided, which I'm not sure if they're actually going to do that, but I don't expect that this is going to cost you any more after its release, so I'd probably just wait. But you could go ahead and check your local friendly game stores, because I know some in my area are offering pre-orders, and you might get a shipping discount if you go through your local game store rather than buying from their website. There's a store here in Canada that was selling it, and I did the math and it ended up costing me the exact same whether I bought it here or at the store, so there wasn't really any benefit to me. I didn't pre-order this and I don't plan to, but I just wanted to see what the price difference would be. And then we have Familiar Tales, which you can go ahead and pre-order now. It's not on Kickstarter or GameFound, they're just launching it over on their website, but this is coming from the same designer who created the game Mice and Mystics. But in this game, it's a story-driven game where players will play as 4 different magical creatures, and you're going to be protecting this baby as you fight against evil. As I mentioned, this is a story-driven game and it has a fully narrated app, and the child's actually going to be growing over the course of the game, and her personality is going to form based on the way that you've raised her. And this one will be coming with a few miniatures, and the price tag on this one is pretty reasonable, especially when you consider that they're offering free shipping to quite a few countries. Also, no preview videos up for this one yet, but it looks like they're going to be getting some soon, so if you want to get notified of that, you can go ahead and sign up with your email. And of course, this segment wouldn't be complete without announcing at least one video game that's being turned into a board game, and the one that I heard about this week is for Borderlands, and it looks like this is going to be an arena style game, but it's also a co-op, so I'm not sure if there's going to be a story to go along with that. I had a lot of fun with the first Borderlands video game. The other ones that came after that were okay. I kind of fell off the wagon at that point, but if you're a huge fan and you want to see some familiar content, this is definitely one to sign up for. And that's all I have for this portion of the video, so let's check out the Kickstarters. Launching on November 15th, we have Esopya, and this plays 1v1 or 2v2, and I expect that it takes about 1 to 2 hours to play. And this is a combat card game that uses a tactical board where players are trying to destroy their opponent's kingdom on the other side. Players are going to be gathering different cards throughout the game and then playing them into different areas of the board depending on the type of card that they are. First, there's the creature cards, and these are your main attack cards, and you'll be playing these out onto the board, but they'll also be moving around the board and they can attack each other as well as your opponent's kingdom if you are able to move it far enough to the other side so that your opponent's kingdom is in range. And then there's the support cards, which can also be played to the board, but they can only be played in the defense row, which is the row that is closest to you. And these are going to offer some sort of defense or support to your creature cards or to your kingdom. And then there's the spell cards, which are not played into the battlefield, but they allow a player to perform a special effect or ability. To play all the cards that I just mentioned, you're going to have to spend mana, and players do get a set amount of mana each round, but you can also play mana cards that are going to allow you to activate even more cards by issuing you more mana on your turn. And then finally, each player is going to have a realm card that sits in the middle of the defense row on each side of the board, and it's going to allow the players to have a special ability depending on which realm card you have, but it also determines how much health each player is going to have, and you're going to be using that card to track your health throughout the game, and if your health ever gets to 0, then you lose the game. Each player draws 7 cards into their hand at the start of the game, and then players are going to take turns until a winner is determined. On your turn, all the cards that you already have out on the battlefield are going to get activated, which means that they're going to be able to move or attack, and then you're going to gain 5 mana in order to spend on activating different cards or putting new cards into play. After that, you'll be able to draw a new card into your hand from your own personal deck or from the shared mana deck if you want to try and get more mana to activate more cards on a future turn. There's 2 types of creature cards in this game. There's melee creature cards and ranged creature cards, and they work exactly how they sound. The melee creature cards can only attack the cards near to them, which means their existing row or the 2 rows adjacent to them, where a ranged card can aim almost anywhere on the board up to their range. And similar to Keyforge, when you do attack another card, you're both going to take damage depending on your attack power as well as your opponent's attack power. The game offers 3 different factions, and there's 9 armies per faction, which means that there's 9 decks in total, and you can play with predetermined decks, or you can go through some deck building rules that the game provides as well. And if you're interested in the deck building variant, you'll definitely want to check out the deluxe version of the game, because you're going to get twice as many cards for each army, which means that there's a ton more options when it comes to deck building. And as always, if this game interests you, I have links to the campaign in the description below. Also on November 15th, we have Empower Empathy, and this plays 2 to 6 players and takes about 30 to 60 minutes to play. And this is a cooperative game that was designed to help children develop emotional awareness and empathy with a positive growth mindset. Players will take on the role of a squad of superheroes with superpowers to help solve any social dilemma. And players will be fighting back against an evil villain who's casting spells of emotional confusion on otherwise everyday normal situations. On a player's turn, they're going to be spinning the spinner and rolling a die, and the spinner is going to determine whether you're moving your hero character or the villain. And if you land on the villain, then you're going to be rolling the die, and the number that appears is going to dictate where the villain appears on the map. And any sections that the villain touches are going to turn to red, and that indicates that there's a problem to solve now at that location. If the spinner allowed you to move one of the heroes instead of the villain, then you're going to be rolling the die, and the die is going to indicate how many steps you have to move. The nice thing about this is that you can actually choose which hero that you want to move, so there is a decision to be made there. Ending your move on different areas of the map can have some different effects, like gaining you special power-ups, or even getting you thrown into the villain's lair. But if you land on one of those red tiles, you're going to be presented with a scenario and some requirements that the players can try to fulfill, and fulfilling those is how you win the game. If players can keep up to the villain and solve all these social dilemmas before they get too out of hand, then the players win the game and restore peace to the city. And now launching on November 16th, we have HYDRORACERS, and this plays 2 to 4 players and takes about 30 to 60 minutes to play. And this is a racing game where players are going to be continually alternating between a racing phase and a development phase. And players are going to be taking control of different aircrafts that are going to be pretty basic at the start of the game, but then you're going to be developing it and continually improving, which is going to gradually change the pace and strategy that you have for each of the upcoming races. During a race, each player is going to take a turn to play an action card and also move their plane forward on the circuit. Players will have to be careful because taking certain risks can damage your plane, which you'll have to repair in the development phase. And during the development phase, each player is going to have a bag that they're drawing different chips from, and depending on the chip that they draw, they can decide where they want to place it on their player board. And each player is going to have their own asymmetric plane that operates a little bit different from the other players, as well as their own pilot that also has a unique ability. Players are going to be gaining victory points depending on how they perform for each race, and the player with the most victory points on the last race is going to win the game. And a really nice thing about this game is that players decide how many races they want to compete in at the start of the game, and that's going to effectively set the length of your game, as well as how many opportunities you'll have to upgrade your plane. Also launching on November 16th, we have Dictopia, and this plays 1 to 7 players and takes only 15 minutes to play. And this is a fast-paced word game that plays over 5 90-second rounds. In each round, players are going to be drawing 8 cards into their hand, and each card is going to have 2 letters on it that players are going to be trying to form words with. To form a word, you just slide the cards beside each other, matching up the letters that you want to use. And there are a couple ways for players to earn victory points in this game. Each letter is going to have a number of eye icons associated with it, and each one of those is worth victory points if you can use that letter in your word. Players can also earn victory points by completing the different mission cards by forming words according to the criteria of the card. Players can record their word and victory points after each round, and the player with the most victory points at the end of the 5th round wins the game. And as always, if this interests you, I have links to the campaign in the description below. Also launching on November 16th is Sammu-Ramat and DerrocAr, and these are actually 2 very different games that play very differently from each other, and this is coming from the publisher Ion Game Design. But they actually run a really solid design contest that I've entered in a few times with some of my own designs, and it's just a great way for people to get feedback and learn about playtesting and blind playtesting and all these different stages of developing your board game. They've also published a few notable games like Stationfall and Dawn on Titan, which I know a lot of my friends are enjoying. I unfortunately haven't played them. For a board game content creator, I really need to find more time to play these games. But Sammu-Ramat is a 1 to 5 player co-op game where players are going to be playing the role of different advisors trying to protect their empire from unrest, external attacks, natural disasters, and other threats. Each player is going to have their own abilities and strengths, and they're going to spend actions to play different action cards to move across the board and balance each region, balancing their military, supply, and religious needs. A few scenario cards will be drawn down at the beginning of the game, which are going to dictate the win conditions and the requirements that players are going to have to meet. And if players are able to do that, then they win the game. And then DerrocAr is going to be the complete opposite of that, where players are playing competitively, and rather than advisors, they're going to be provincial governors of different provinces, each running for presidency of Argentina in the middle of a political and economic crisis of 2001. And of course, any politician's goal is to win by proving that you are the least bad option and showing the incompetence of your opponents. And the game plays over a series of rounds, and each round has 2 phases, and during the first phase, players will be able to choose an action like proposing a law, decrees, making debt payments or embezzlement funds, and then they'll be able to buy a card from the shared market. And then during the next phase, you're going to be playing sets of the cards that you've collected to perform different operations, lobby for different efforts, and create conflict with different establishments or bad campaigns with the press. And of course, the entire goal of this is to make sure all the provinces the other governors are running are full of as many conflicts and drama as possible. Of course, every other player is going to be trying to do this to you as well, so you're also going to have your hands full dealing with all those events and your failing economy. And to win the game, you want to be the player with the most support at the end of the game. Also launching on November 16th, we have Goblin Uprising, and this plays 2 to 6 players and takes about 60 to 90 minutes to play. And this is a competitive board game where players are playing as the goblins, fighting back against the elves, dwarves, merfolk, and humans who have ravaged their land and bullied them for just far too long. Players will each control their own goblin miniature with its own special abilities, fighting style, and player board, and players will be fighting against armies of the different mythical races, earning experience points by defeating the different troops across the map, and even completing different quests. Players can then use those experience points to level up their characters and get stronger. On top of that, players can also get an edge by gathering powerful loot, making legendary allies, and making and breaking alliances with the other players. One of the mythical races will hold power over the entire realm, and the first player to defeat the leader at the center of the map wins the game. And there will be some surprises that slightly change your goals as the game progresses, because once a player is strong enough to challenge the final boss, that boss's behavior is going to change. This means that the boss might get stronger and even require more than one player to take out, or you might require a certain strategy or weapon to cater to its weakness. Some of these variable endings will even change the way that the players have to interact with each other, so there'll be quite a different feel depending on how the game ends. And just a reminder that if any of these games interest you, I have links in the description below. Also launching on November 16th, we have 3 new games that are being added to the Valeria universe that are all going to be included in a single campaign, and there's going to be a trick-taking game, a roll and write, and a solo player tower defense game. And the first one I want to cover is the Thrones of Valeria, and this is the trick-taking game. And this game uses 6 house tiles that will be put out on the table, ordered from most to least valuable, and then players will be playing tricks to manipulate the order of those houses, which will affect their relative value to one another. But then players will also be trying to win the tricks that earn them the most valuable houses. Players will gain or lose gold depending on the houses that they've managed to collect and the way that they've manipulated that market, and the first player to earn 60 gold wins the game. And then we have Siege of Valeria, which is the solo tower defense game, but this will include variant rules for a 2-player game. And in this game, you're going to be defending your castle against hordes and hordes of monsters. And players will have to make good use of their soldiers and wizards before time runs out and the castle walls crumble. The game also offers a more challenging campaign mode where your performance in one game is going to affect your abilities in the next. And then we have Dice Kingdoms of Valeria, and this one is the roll and write. And what makes this one a little bit different from other roll and writes is that each player is going to be rolling 6 dice on their turn, but then 2 of those dice are going to affect everyone at the table, and then 4 are only going to affect the person who rolled the dice. And the dice will give you some different options, like hiring citizens for more scoring opportunities, slaying monsters to gain glory and rewards, or building roads to different areas to gain different resources. You can also earn magical power, which you can spend to improve different areas of your player sheet however you like. And a neat discovery that I just made right now is that they actually announced the next game in their series, and this is going to be called the Guild Academies of Valeria. And what makes this one really interesting is that it's being designed by Stan Kordonsky, that has just been making a ton of excellent games lately. You might know him from Dice Hospital, Rurik Dawn of Kiev, or Endless Winter, and he also has a game on Kickstarter right now called Resurgence that's been getting a lot of love from different content creators and reviewers. This one's aiming to launch from early to mid 2022, so I'm not going to cover it right now, but make sure to subscribe if you want more info in the future. Also launching on November 16th, we have the Offensive Roads Stalingrad, and this plays 2 players and takes about 60 to 180 minutes to play. And this is a war game that covers the 1942 to 43 winter campaign on the Soviet South Front, and this is going to be a continuation of the Roads series that was previously published by a different publisher. This game will follow a similar system that's going to be familiar to players that have enjoyed those first 2 games. The game's going to offer 4 different scenarios. There's going to be the Wintergewitter, which is a small 2-turn scenario that's ideal for getting started with the system and getting the players used to the game. There's also the Manstein Backhand Blow, which is a short but intense scenario to maneuver the German armored forces during a desperate situation. And then there's the Star and Gallop, which starts in February of 1943, and this scenario shows the end of the campaign from the surrender of the 6th Army. And then there's the Edge of the Abyss, which takes 17 turns and features the full campaign. And now on November 19th, we have a campaign for 2 small trick-taking games. There's the American Bookshop and the Cinderella's Dance, and these are both going to come in these cute little boxes. An American Bookshop plays 3 to 5 players and takes about 30 to 50 minutes to play, and the way that this game works is that each of the different colored cards are going to represent the suits, and a player is going to be playing a certain color of card, and all other players have to match that color if it's possible to do so. And if you don't, then you can play any color that you want, but you want to try and collect a majority of certain colors, because if you have the majority of a certain color, then all those cards are worth 1 point at the end of the game. And if you don't have a majority of that color, then each card of that color is going to be minus 1 point. So you're really going to want to min-max your way through this game and try to not get too many cards of the ones that you're not going for. Normally the person who played the highest value of the leading color wins the trick, but there is another way to win the trick, and that's by making the sum of all the values higher than a predetermined number. And the game ends as soon as a single player's hand is completely depleted, and then you tally up the points, and the player with the most points wins the game. And then Cinderella's Dance plays quite a bit differently. This is still a trick-taking game, but it doesn't have any suit and it doesn't have any trump, so it's quite a lot different from almost every trick-taking game that I've ever seen. And the way that this works is that when a player puts a number out on the table, the next player can only put out a card that has a value of maximum 3 more than the card that was just played. So if you were to put a 5 out on the table, then the next player could only put a 6, 7, or 8. And if they're unable to do so, then they pass. Or if they don't want to, maybe they want to save their cards for later, then they can also pass. And whenever a player passes, then the previous player is going to win that trick. And this continues until one of the players runs out of cards, and then the player with the most tricks wins the game. And in that example, the cards were just showing you the numbers, but the cards will actually have some really nice artwork on them as well, and also a really nice little box to go along with it. I always like to see trick-taking games that do something a little bit different, and these games definitely do. So if you like trick-taking games and want to add something a little different to your collection, you can definitely check this one out. Links in the description below. And then on November 20th, we have Keresis, The Quest for the Elements, and this plays 2 to 4 players and takes about 30 to 120 minutes to play. And this is a game that uses a modular board, and players are going to use actions to explore the map, gather resources, and then use those resources to control different territories on the board. When you control a territory, you can do special things with it, like rotate it or unleash the special ability that it has. And players are going to be trying to decorate their shrines in these different territories in order to gain victory points. And the first player to put an amulet on each of the 4 shrines wins the game, or the player with the highest victory points at the end of 24 rounds. And those are all the campaigns I have for you this week, but don't leave yet because we have a couple of giveaways to announce. And these are both going to be for combat card games, so if you like those types of games, you'll definitely want to stick around for these. And the first one we have is for Clash of Decks Season 2, and this has been an interesting one because I actually launched a campaign not long ago selling their starter kit completely for free. All you had to do was pay for shipping, and that turned out to be quite a hit because they are doing quite well on this campaign with over $120,000 raised. And this campaign's adding a bunch of different asymmetrical decks for players to fight against each other with. And the way that this game works is that each player is going to have 8 cards in their hand, and you're going to be gaining mana on your turn based on the number of cards that you have in your hand, but you're going to have less and less in your hand as you spend mana to put them out onto the board. And the goal of the game is to try and get rid of all your opponent's cards, because once they have no more cards left on their area of the board, then you're able to attack their fort. And the way that the health of the fort is tracked in this game is really interesting because it's tracked by where its position is in your hand of cards. So as it takes more damage, you're going to move it more and more to the right of your hand. And once it reaches the end, you're going to flip it and then reset it to the leftmost side of your hand. And if it happens again, then you lose the game. And if you want to know more about how this game plays, you can go ahead and check out all the different content on their campaign page, or you can check out my previous video that I guess I'll leave a link to right up here. And to enter this giveaway, just leave a comment down below with the hashtag deck, and leave a comment with what you think would be a good suggestion for a standalone expansion in their Season 3 campaign. which I have not confirmed, and I don't know if there will be a season 3, but let's just assume there is. And if I enhance this image here, we can see a little bit closer of what they have in this campaign, and that's the Werecat, Bigfoot, the Flying Pig, the Frost Giant, Underwater Scuba Diver guy, and what looks to be a Battletoad. Leave a fun suggestion in the comment section below, and good luck in the contest. And the next giveaway is for another card battler, and this is called Elementile. And this one looked really interesting because it had a spatial element to the game. The way that this game works is that you're going to be playing cards out onto the board, and then you're going to be trying to move your cards to the end of the board so that you can actually attack your opponent. This game also incorporates a few other unique mechanisms that I think sound very interesting, and one of those is that the cards can attack in different directions and will inflict a different amount of damage depending on the direction that they attack. So as you're moving around the board, you might want to attack cards in a certain direction to yourself so that you can inflict the most damage possible. And this giveaway is going to be for the base game pledge, which comes with the core game and all unlocked stretch goals. And to enter this giveaway, just leave a comment down below with the hashtag element, and let us know if you could control a single element. Which one would it be? Water, wind, earth, light, darkness, or fire? I live in Canada, so I think spawning fire in the middle of the winter could be pretty useful. Also, everyone knows that firebending was the coolest. And let's go ahead and draw the winners for last week's giveaways, and the first one was for CoinSides, and this one was run over on the Discord, and this is going to get automatically drawn in the next 24 hours, so if you're watching this video early enough and you haven't entered that giveaway, you can check out our Discord in the description below, and just check out the giveaways channel and you can get entered in that maybe before it draws. And if you entered any other giveaways on the Discord, make sure to check your notifications because there were a couple drawn not too long ago. And the next giveaway we had was for Damnation, the Gothic game. And to draw a winner, I use this fancy application here. And all these extra names down here are bonus entries for my Patreon subscribers. If you like this sort of content, you want to help out the channel, definitely check that out. I truly appreciate it, and it also gets you some extra entries into these giveaways. So let's go ahead and draw those comments. And then we will draw a winner. And the winner is Shia Ho. Congratulations, and I'm really glad to see your name pop up again here because the last time you won a giveaway it ended up getting cancelled, even though I always wait until campaign's fun before announcing giveaways, but it ended up getting cancelled anyway, and you were a super awesome sport about it, and I really appreciate that because running all these giveaways is actually a ton of work. So I'm really glad that we have a second chance here. And those are all the campaigns I have for you this week, and things are slowing down a little bit. I don't even know for sure that these campaigns are going to launch. Campaigns are usually a little bit more volatile around this time because as they get pushed off into the November-December territory, they usually just end up pushing them to January or February to avoid competing with all the holiday spending. And some of you might have been expecting me to announce Hero Realms Dungeons, but this actually got pushed back to 2022, so that's just one example of these things happening. But a little bit of a slowdown with the campaigns will be a welcome change for me. Maybe it'll give me a chance to do something a little bit different, like maybe a different type of video, or maybe I can paint some miniatures, or maybe I can actually play a board game for once. But I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and until next time, keep that shelf cluttered and the table full.